Today's guest is one of my favorite guests, and I consider him a friend. His name's Giorgio Tsoukalos. He's the chairman and director of research at the Center of Ancient Astronaut Research, AASRA, which stands for Archaeology, Astronautics, and SETI Research Association. He's also the publisher and editor-in-chief of the AASRA's official quarterly Legendary Times. This is when we say quarterly, of course, that means 4 times a year. And I've received these. These are excellent publications. Legendary Times is the world's only and definitive ancient astronaut journal. The AASRA is determined to prove, using scientific research methods, but in layman's terms, as to whether or not extraterrestrials have visited Earth in the remote past. Now, as you guys remember, we spoke with Giorgio probably, I guess, about 2 months ago. And at that time, I really wanted to get Giorgio back on so we could talk about some more things. We skipped around. We talked about various sacred sites, enigmatic monuments, etc. We're going to talk about that some more today. But also, I want to talk about some of the men who are really kind of the forefathers of this whole idea, people like Erich Von Daniken, Zecharia Sitchin, and more. So without further ado, let's welcome Giorgio on to the show. Giorgio, how you doing, man?
Very good, Michael. Thank you very much for the great introduction.
Well, thanks for coming on, brother. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Hey, one of the things I really wanted to get into first is when I look at your site, which for everybody is www.legendarytimes.com. When I look at that site, one of the first things that strikes me, Giorgio, is just an intense amount of work and obviously a labor of love on your part. How did you get involved in this study and research, and what really struck you as really making you passionate about this and saying, you know what, I want to show the world this information? What really got you? What happened?
Yeah, what happened? That's what my parents ask, even though they're at fault for all of this.
Right? Really?
Because I had the privilege to travel with them all around the world, when I was growing up, and we'd go to all these different archaeological sites, and obviously we had, as a tourist group with the guided tours and all this. But then at the same time, whenever, for example, my grandmother would travel with me, she'd say, yeah, go ahead and listen to the tour guide. But let me tell you that this guy, Erich Von Daniken, has proposed that, there's an alternative to dogmatic or orthodox ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that was basically, so at a very young age, I was exposed to the alternative science, alternative history paradigm. However, it was only in my teens that I actually started to, read books about that particular theme and topic, and especially the ancient astronaut theme. And having grown up in Switzerland for part of my life, mm-hmm. Erich Von Daniken is an author from Switzerland. And so he was always fairly popular being a celebrity author in Switzerland. So, mm-hmm. It was very easy for me to be confronted by his books, and also had the chance to go to a few lectures in Germany and in Switzerland. And I got to tell you, I got hooked because the mm-hmm. ancient astronaut theory, essentially, compared to all other theories, is, in my opinion, the most profound theory there is, giving the best answers. And I'm not saying that, it is this or no other theory, but it is definitely a better possibility to explain away the things that there's still unsolved mysteries about with the ancient astronaut theory.
I understand. How long did you live in Switzerland? You were born there, correct?
I was born in Greece.
Oh, you were born in Greece, okay.
Yes, and then at age barely a year, we moved to Switzerland, and I basically grew up there until I was in my late teens, early 20s, and then I moved here for college, and I just never left. But then again, my my grandpa, he went to Brooklyn in 1906. So, I'm a New Yorker. What can I say?
Right on. Well, you mentioned your grandmother mentioned Erich Von Daniken to you. Now,
that's my, and that's the mother of my mother. So she was the maternal side of on the maternal side, my grandmother, and she's always been into the whole, mysterious and unorthodox side of research and stuff like this.
So, I mean, she was pretty much kind of a believer in those views when she's kind of leaning over and telling you this, I guess.
Oh, sure, absolutely, and also, in the 70s, those views weren't, as accepted as they are today. I mean,
that's right.
Even though that, sure, Chariots of the Gods hit it big time in the 70s, but it was such a novelty, it was such a new thing that, it was still considered to be the absolute fringe, which it still is today, but less so than it was, like I said, 30, 35 years ago. And the great thing is that, with the advent of the internet and self-publishing and things like this, the ancient astronaut theory definitely is experiencing a renaissance.
Well, that's a beautiful thing, because I, like yourself, kind of got hooked on this idea when I was very young, and it resonated with me. I read Chariots of the Gods and Gold of the Gods actually when I was in, believe it or not, elementary school, because I was kind of a weird kid and I just was into science fiction and discovery and space and things. And I remember those television shows, the specials that they would make occasionally. I also remember, and I'm hoping you can clarify this for me. At one point, there were certain people that were really trying to discredit Von Daniken and say that he had made mistakes on this, that, or the other thing. And I don't remember the exact details. What were they trying to say that he had done or was wrong about?
Yeah, I mean, what essentially happened is, I mean, in the 70s, Erich's first books, Chariots of the Gods and Gods from Outer Space and the Gold of the Gods and Pathways to the Gods and Signs of the Gods, all those were highly, highly popular books. But they were against mainstream science. I mean, they completely, annihilated popular beliefs in science. So what happened is that if anybody, and most of our listeners are very familiar with Erich's books that are available in English, but ever since 1968, when the German version of Chariots of the Gods came out, until 2006, in the meantime, Erich has written 26 additional books in German. Now, in the English language, only 12, less than half, have been translated into English, and that is why. That happened because from the early 80s until the beginning of the 90s, there's almost a decade, a dozen years, where there has been absolute silence in the English-speaking world with Erich's books. And essentially what's happened is that the quote-unquote bona fide scientists here in the U.S. and also in England, they banded together and signed a petition and sent those signed letters to the major publishing houses in England and in the United States, and they said if those big publishing houses decide to continue publishing Erich von Daniken's works, they would not submit any of their research anymore to them for publication. And unfortunately, the big publishing houses, they fell for it, where, had this been today, this would have never worked because, you see, back then, Erich's books would have outsold all of those scientists' books combined.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me because back then, I mean, he was a hit author.
Yeah, but see, money or corporations weren't as greedy back then as they are today.
Right.
There has been a paradigm shift in that. So back then, okay, you can always say money always ruled the world, but, I most certainly was there a less greedier time, and that was in the 80s.
Well, out of curiosity, the 8 books that haven't been translated into English, those books still have not been translated into English?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, there's actually there's about 14 books that have not been translated into English. I mean, one